The dust-stained window rattled as Nora King pressed her weathered palm against it, squinting through the grime at the distant figure swinging on his horse in the Nebraska sunset of 1876. Something wasn't right. Could this weary cowboy's arrival change a widow's lonely life forever? Keep listening to uncover the heart-wrenching secret he's carrying. Something wasn't right. She had never seen Finn Northrop ride so unsteadily, especially not with those two small bundles clutched against his chest. As he neared their homestead, Nora's heart lurched. Those weren't bundles. They were babies, twins. Good heavens, she whispered, grabbing her shawl and rushing out the door. Finn barely managed to stay upright in the saddle, his usually bright blue eyes sunken with exhaustion. His once pristine Stetson was coated in the same dust that covered his trail-worn clothing. The twin infants were tucked protectively against him, one in each arm, both remarkably quiet. "Finn," Nora called out, rushing toward him as his horse plodded into the yard. "What on earth?" His voice came out as a rasp. "Found them out near Dead Man's Crossing. Wagon, everyone gone." Each word seemed to drain what little energy he had left. "Here, let me take them." Nora reached up, carefully extracting first one infant and then the other from his trembling arms. The babies, who couldn't be more than a few months old, were wrapped in tattered blankets that had once been fine quality. With the twins safely transferred, Finn's body finally surrendered to exhaustion. He didn't fall from the saddle. Rather, he simply stopped moving, his spine rigid against the cantle, eyes closed, head tilted forward slightly as if he'd simply turned to stone. "Finn," Nora called, alarmed. The only response was his shallow breathing, so faint she had to study his chest to be certain he was still alive. He had literally fallen asleep upright in the saddle, too exhausted even to dismount. "Finn Northrop, you stubborn fool," Nora muttered, though there was no real anger in her voice, only concern. She looked down at the infants in her arms, then back up at the sleeping cowboy. "What am I supposed to do with all three of you?" She'd known Finn for nearly a year now, ever since he'd started working at her brother's ranch after her husband died. He was a good man, capable, honest, and generally not prone to showing up with mysterious twin babies. Whatever had happened out there on the trail, it must have been dire. The spring evening was cooling rapidly as the sun sank behind the distant hills. Nora couldn't stand there forever with two babies in her arms and an unconscious cowboy on horseback. "Mr. Barton," she called toward the small bunkhouse where her elderly ranch hand lived. "I need your help." The weathered old cowhand emerged, took one look at the scene, and hurried over without a word. Together, they managed to ease Finn from his saddle. He woke just enough to stumble with their support into the house, mumbling about ambush and had to save them before collapsing onto Nora's sofa, instantly asleep again. With Finn settled, Nora turned her attention to the infants. Both were girls with identical wisps of blonde hair and rosy cheeks. Despite whatever ordeal they'd endured, they seemed remarkably healthy, though hungry. Nora warmed some goat's milk and fed them using clean rags dipped in the liquid. "What happened to your folks, little ones?" she whispered as they eagerly accepted the nourishment. "And how did you end up with our Finn?" Mr. Barton hovered in the doorway, his leathery face creased with concern. "Should I write for the doctor, madam, or the sheriff?" Nora considered this. "Let's wait until morning. Finn needs rest more than anything, and these little ones seem healthy enough. We'll learn the full story when he wakes." The old ranch hand nodded. "I'll tend to his horse and keep watch tonight." "Not right. What's happening on the trails these days?" "Not right at all." After he left, Nora fashioned makeshift cribs from two dresser drawers lined with soft blankets. She placed them near the fireplace where she could keep watch over both the twins and Finn throughout the night. As darkness settled over the small ranch house, Nora studied Finn's face. Even in sleep, the lines of worry hadn't completely faded from his brow. At 30, he was 5 years her junior, but he carried himself with a maturity that belied his age. In the years since her husband Thomas had died in that terrible mining accident, Finn had been nothing but respectful, keeping a proper distance while still making himself indispensable around the ranch. She had noticed him, of course, his quiet competence, the gentleness he showed toward animals, the way his rare smile transformed his serious face. But she had buried those observations deep, convinced that her heart had been laid to rest alongside Thomas. Now, watching him sleep after whatever heroic rescue he'd undertaken, something stirred in her that she thought had died. She pushed the feeling away. Whatever was happening here was about those babies, not about her traitorous heart. Morning came with Finn still deeply asleep and the twins fussing for their breakfast. Nora had just finished feeding them when Finn finally stirred, his eyes flying open with alarm. "The babies," he gasped, trying to sit up too quickly. "They're fine," Nora assured him, nodding toward where the twins now lay contentedly in their makeshift beds. "But you have a powerful lot of explaining to do, Finn Northrop." Relief washed over his face as he sank back against the pillow she'd placed under his head. "How long was I out?" "All night." "Nearly 12 hours, she said, bringing him a cup of coffee. "Now tell me what happened." Finn's hands trembled slightly as he took the coffee. "I was riding back from delivering that message to your brother in Cottonwood. Took the short route through Dead Man's Crossing." He paused, his jaw tightening. "Found a wagon. Family heading west. Looks like mother, father, grandmother, and a boy about 10. All dead." Nora's hand flew to her mouth. "Indians." Finn shook his head grimly. "Outlaws. Wasn't any tribal marking or arrows, just bullet holes. They'd been robbed of everything valuable. Almost didn't see the babies. They were hidden under a false floor in the wagon. Smart mama must have tucked them away when trouble came." "Those poor souls," Nora whispered. "I buried them proper, marked the graves best I could," Finn continued. "Couldn't leave the little ones there. Nearest town was a day's ride either direction, and he looked at her uncertainly. "I thought of you. How good you were with your sister's children when they visited. Thought maybe you'd know what to do." A complicated emotion passed through Nora. Sadness for the orphan twins, anger at the senseless violence, and something else. Something warm at the knowledge that in his moment of crisis, Finn had thought of her. "You did the right thing bringing them here," she said. "But we need to inform the sheriff. See if they have any other kin." Finn nodded, but his eyes were on the twins. They didn't make a sound the whole ride except for a few whimpers, almost like they knew to stay quiet. "What will happen to them?" Nora wondered aloud. "If no family claims them?" Finn shrugged. "Orphanage most likely. Or maybe separate homes if folks are willing to take in one but not both." "Separate them?" Nora looked at the identical faces so peaceful in sleep. "That would be cruel." "It would," Finn agreed, his voice soft. An unspoken thought hung between them, but neither gave it voice. Within the hour, Sheriff Tom Bradley arrived, his face grim as he took down Finn's account. The lawman was a good sort, fair-minded and thorough, but the territory was vast and lawless in parts. "I'll send wires, see if I can locate any family," he promised. "But I won't lie to you. It's a long shot." "Sounds like these folks were moving west for a fresh start. Probably leaving everything behind. Might take weeks to get any response." "What about the babies in the meantime?" Nora asked. The sheriff scratched his graying beard. "Well, nearest orphanage is in Lincoln. Could arrange transport in a few days if you can't mind them until then." "We'll keep them," Finn said firmly, then caught himself and looked at Nora. "I mean, if Mrs. Kincaid is agreeable." Nora found herself nodding. "Of course, they can stay here until proper arrangements are made." After the sheriff departed with promises to return soon with news, a strange domestic scene took shape. Finn insisted on staying to help, despite Nora's assurances that she could manage. Together they improvised a routine. Nora handling most of the feeding while Finn, surprisingly adept for a bachelor cowboy, helped with changing and soothing the infants. "You're good with them," Nora observed that evening as Finn gently rocked one of the twins, whom they'd temporarily named Faith. Nora held Hope in her own arms. A shadow crossed Finn's face. "Had a little sister once, helped my ma with her before." He didn't finish, but Nora knew from bits of conversation over the past year that his family had been lost to fever when he was 16. "I always wanted children," Nora said softly. "Thomas and I tried, but it wasn't meant to be." Finn's eyes met hers with unexpected tenderness.
"You'd have been a wonderful mother."
The simple statement delivered without pity touched something deep inside her. For a moment neither spoke, the only sound the soft breathing of the babies and the crackling fire. But as their bond deepens, a shocking family secret threatens to tear them apart. Will love conquer all, or will tragedy strike again? The following days fell into a rhythm. Mr. Barton and the other hands managed the ranch work while Finn stayed close to the house, helping with the twins and making repairs he'd long been meaning to address. They received no word from the sheriff, which wasn't surprising given the distances involved.
On the fourth night, a spring storm lashed the plains with unexpected fury.
The twins, sensitive to the thunder, woke crying repeatedly. Near midnight, with both babies finally sleeping, Nora found Finn on the porch staring into the rain-soaked darkness.
"You should sleep while they do," she said, joining him with a quilt wrapped around her shoulders.
"Just thinking," he replied, his voice low.
"About what?"
"About how this feels right, us together like this.
Taking care of them." Nora's breath caught. "It does feel right." He turned to her, raindrops catching the moonlight on his face.
"Nora," thunder rumbled, cutting him off, and the twins began crying again. They hurried inside, the moment interrupted but not forgotten.
The next morning brought sunshine and an unexpected visitor.
A young woman on a lathered horse rode into the yard, her clothing fine, but travel-stained. "I'm looking for Sheriff Bradley," she announced as Finn stepped onto the porch, one of the twins in his arms.
"My name is Elena Winters. I received a wire about my sister and her family."
Nora joined Finn, her heart sinking even as she painted on a welcoming smile. "The sheriff isn't here, Miss Winters, but please come in.
I believe we have much to discuss."
Over coffee, Elena explained that she was the sister of the twins' mother.
"Caroline and James left Philadelphia 3 months ago.
There was a family disagreement.
Our father disapproved of James's business ventures.
When I received the sheriff's wire, her voice broke.
I left immediately." Elena was clearly refined, educated, and wealthy enough to have traveled quickly across the country. She was also clearly the twins' rightful family.
"They're beautiful girls," Elena said, accepting Hope into her arms while Nora held Faith. "Caroline wrote that she'd had twins, but I never got to see them." Tears slipped down her cheeks.
"I can't believe she's gone."
"The sheriff can take you to the burial site," Finn said quietly.
"I marked it as best I could." Elena nodded gratefully. "Thank you for what you did.
For saving my nieces, for bringing them here, for caring for them. I don't know how to repay such kindness."
"No repayment needed," Nora said, though her heart ached. "Anyone would have done the same." "Not anyone," Elena countered.
It took extraordinary courage and compassion. The conversation turned to practical matters.
Elena would stay in town until arrangements could be made to transport her sister's remains and settle any official matters. Then she would return to Philadelphia with the twins.
"They'll want for nothing," she assured them. "Our family has means, and I've always longed for children myself.
Being unmarried, adoption wasn't possible.
But as their aunt, no one will question my right to raise them." After Elena departed, promising to return the next day, a heavy silence fell over the house. The twins, unaware of the emotional turmoil around them, napped peacefully in their drawer cribs.
"It's for the best," Nora said finally, her voice thin. "They'll have advantages we could never give them."
Finn nodded, but his expression was distant. "I need to check the north pasture fence."
"Been neglecting it."
He grabbed his hat and left without another word.
He didn't return for supper.
Nora fed and bathed the twins alone, fighting tears as she realized how few such moments remained. When darkness fell with still no sign of Finn, she grew worried. It wasn't like him to stay away so long without word. Mr. Barton confirmed that Finn's horse was still gone.
"Want me to go looking, madam?" "No, he's a grown man.
He'll come back when he's ready." But as she said it, a small fear took root.
What if he didn't come back? What if the prospect of losing the twins had driven him away completely? Near midnight, with the twins finally asleep, Nora heard hoofbeats in the yard.
Relief flooded through her as she rushed to the door only to find Sheriff Bradley instead of Finn.
Evening, Mrs. Kincaid.
Sorry to disturb you so late, but I've got news.
Couldn't wait till morning.
His expression was grave.
There's been trouble.
Finn rode into town earlier, said he spotted the same outlaws who killed those folks, tracked them to the old Watson place.
Nora's blood ran cold. Where is he now? That's why I'm here.
Finn and I went out there with a couple deputies.
There was shooting. Finn took a bullet. Is he? She couldn't finish the question. He's alive. Doc Jenkins is patching him up now.
Said to tell you not to worry, but I figured you'd want to know. Within minutes, Nora had bundled the still sleeping twins and was in the sheriff's wagon, racing toward town. Her mind whirled with fear. Stubborn, noble Finn, going after those killers alone at first.
Was he trying to get himself killed?
The doctor's office was lit despite the late hour. Inside, Finn lay on an examination table, his shirt cut away, a white bandage wrapped around his upper chest. His face was pale, but his eyes were open. You foolish man, Nora said, setting the twins' makeshift carrier on a chair.
What were you thinking?
Wasn't, Finn admitted, his voice rough.
Just riding, thinking about the twins leaving.
Then I saw one of them recognized his horse from tracks near the wagon.
Couldn't let them get away. Did you get them all?
Nora asked, surprising herself with the fierceness of her tone.
Sheriff Bradley answered from the doorway.
3 dead, 2 in custody.
Found items belonging to the murdered family. They won't hurt anyone else.
The doctor, a gruff, elderly man, shooed them aside to check Finn's bandage.
Bullet went clean through the shoulder. He's lucky. Inch lower would have hit the lung. He needs rest now.
I'll take him home, Nora said decisively.
The doctor raised an eyebrow. You're home, Mrs. Kincaid.
Yes, she said, ignoring the implications. He was staying there to help with the twins anyway.
I can tend to him there as easily as anywhere.
By dawn, they had Finn settled in the spare bedroom at the ranch.
The twins, disturbed by the night's adventures, were fussy and demanding. Nora moved between them and Finn, managing as best she could on no sleep. Elena arrived mid-morning, concerned when she heard what had happened.
You poor woman trying to manage everything alone, she said, taking charge of the twins with practiced ease.
Let me help while I'm here.
Throughout the day, Finn drifted in and out of sleep, the pain medication making him groggy. When he was awake, his eyes followed Nora around the room with an intensity that made her self-conscious. That evening, with the twins finally settled and Elena gone back to town for the night, Nora sat beside Finn's bed with a basin of cool water, refreshing the compress on his forehead to combat the mild fever that had developed.
Why did you really go after those men? She asked quietly.
Finn's eyes, clearer now as the medication wore off, met hers.
Told you, saw one and recognized him.
And you couldn't wait for the sheriff first.
Had to charge in alone. He looked away. Was angry. Needed to do something. Angry about what? A long pause.
About the twins leaving.
About you suggesting we could raise them together, then taking it back. Nora's hands stilled on the compress. I never took it back.
You walked away because you said for the twins' sake like that was the only reason to consider being together.
Understanding dawned slowly. Oh, Finn. I didn't mean it doesn't matter now anyway, he interrupted. The twins have their aunt. They'll have a good life.
It still matters, Nora said, her voice barely above a whisper.
It matters because even without the twins, there's still you and me.
His eyes found hers again, wary but hopeful.
Is there a you and me?
I think there has been for some time. I was just too afraid to see it. Before he could respond, a cry came from one of the twins. Nora rose to attend to them, but the moment wasn't lost, merely paused.
The next morning brought a surprise.
Elena arrived early, her expression troubled as Nora welcomed her in.
I've been thinking all night, Elena said without preamble. About the twins, about what's best for them.
They'll have a wonderful life with you, Nora assured her, though the words pained her.
Elena shook her head. Will they? I live alone. My family's home is grand but cold. My father is stern and unforgiving.
It's why Caroline left, and she looked at the twins, sleeping peacefully.
I've seen how they look at you both.
How settled they are here.
What are you saying?
Finn asked, having made his way slowly from the bedroom, arm in a sling.
I'm saying perhaps Philadelphia isn't where they belong, Elena said. Perhaps they already found their home. Hope bloomed in Nora's chest, but she tamped it down.
Elena, they're your family, your flesh and blood.
And they always will be, Elena agreed. I'll visit. I'll send gifts and letters.
But I've watched you with them, both of you. They need parents who love each other as well as them. Finn's good hand found Nora's, their fingers intertwining.
We're not married, he pointed out. Elena smiled faintly. That seems a solvable problem, Mr. Northrop.
The next weeks passed in a whirlwind. Elena stayed long enough to sign legal papers making Nora and Finn the twins' legal guardians, with herself named as their aunt with visitation rights. She attended the small wedding ceremony in Nora's parlor where Finn, his arm still in a sling but his eyes bright with happiness, promised to love and cherish Nora for all his days. The ranch became a true home filled with the sounds of babies growing and a love deepening with each passing day. The tragic circumstances that had brought them together faded into a bittersweet memory, honored but not dwelt upon. One evening, nearly a year later, Nora found Finn in the nursery they'd built, sound asleep in the rocking chair with Faith and Hope, now toddling and chattering, curled against his chest. His arms encircled them protectively, his head tilted back, his breathing deep and peaceful. Unlike that first night when she'd found him too exhausted to breathe properly, this was the sleep of a man content in his world, surrounded by the family he'd helped create through an act of courage and compassion.
My cowboy, Nora whispered, bending to press a kiss to his forehead.
His eyes fluttered open, and the smile that spread across his face told her everything she needed to know about the journey they'd taken and the life they'd built together. Outside, the Nebraska sun set on another day in their unexpected, cherished life, a life that had begun with a tragedy, but blossomed into a love story neither had dared to imagine.
Thanks for watching.
If you enjoyed the story, please subscribe to this channel and tell us where you are watching from.
Have a wonderful day.